take us through what's likely to make it through the Senate and what's not, we welcome now Douglas Holtz-Eakin. He's president of the American Action Forum and former director of Congressional Budget Office. So, Douglas, thank you so much for being with us. What do you think will make it through the Senate? What do you guess?
Well, they will certainly get something through the Senate. The Democrats cannot fail their newly elected president, so we can rest assured of that. The procedures they're using, the so-called reconciliation, are designed for budgetary decisions. They were intended originally to help Congress do hard things like raise taxes and cut spending. They're rarely used for that. But anything that involves just money is going to get through. So things like expanding the earned income tax credit, increasing the child tax credit, making it refundable, the child poverty initiative, those kinds of things will certainly get through. Some things that have nothing to do with COVID will get through. There's a bailout of the multi-employer pension system, but it's just writing checks, so that'll get through. The tougher calls are things that involve policy and not just money. So, for example, they have a proposal to provide subsidies to COBRA coverage. People who keep their employer-sponsored insurance after they get laid off. The parliamentarian may decide that's not budgetary in nature and strike it out. So, they'll get to $1.9 trillion because they can, and they will fill it up with a whole bunch of tax credits and spending initiatives.
So one thing that it appears at this point will not be in the Senate version is the minimum wage of $15 an hour. And I remember, Doug, you and I were on the air together right after the Biden proposal came out, and we talked about this and how you could connect it back into COVID. Is that dead, or do you think it could come back as a separate proposal?
I think that proposal is dead. To raise the minimum wage in 2021 is unwise, quite frankly. 60% of America's minimum wage workers are in leisure and hospitality. As you know, last March and April, we lost 8 million jobs in leisure and hospitality. We've gotten about 4 million of them back. And so to raise the minimum wage when 4 million of the least skilled, least qualified employees are on the sidelines, it's just a recipe for making sure the small businesses don't reopen and the workers don't come back. So they shouldn't do that this year, and they shouldn't go to 15. It's too big. But there's a case to be made for raising the minimum wage and doing it when the economy is stronger, 2022, 2023 for sure. And I think you could come back to that in regular order and get that done.
One of the things that strikes me is that if you look at the numbers right now, the economy is coming back faster than the jobs are. Certainly some jobs have come back, but there's really, really unevenness in the job market. What can or should the Congress do to address the job issue specifically?
So I think the Congress has done a terrific job so far. I really do. The responses they've had to date have been timely. The CARES Act, what they did at the end of the year, have been appropriately scaled. $1.9 trillion in the CARES Act, another $900 billion at the end of the year, and they had the right composition. They went in and tried to keep workers connected with their firms. They supported the purchasing power of the household sector. I think that on the whole, that fiscal response has been well done, and we're seeing it in the economy right now. I mean, the economy is growing quite rapidly. The places the jobs aren't coming back are the ones where the virus prevents it. So again, think of leisure and hospitality. This is everybody who works in casinos and hotels, some waiters and the like. The virus is preventing the return of those jobs, and there's nothing Congress can really do except combat the virus. And the vaccine program, testing, contact tracing, all of the initiatives that are in there are the key to get those jobs back.
But the assistance being extended is not limited to travel and leisure and people who are in those sectors, right? Are we being overly inclusive, and could there be prices to be paid as we're building up sort of consumer demand that the supply is not there for?
I'm quite concerned about the $1.9 trillion. I think it is overreach. The economy is not in recession. It's forecast to grow 4.6% for the year by the Congressional Budget Office, and in the first quarter it's going to be 6%, 8%, given current estimates. So there really isn't a big case for stimulus that you can make right now, and the bill is not targeted on the problems we have. As you mentioned, we've got checks going out to everybody, whether they've lost a day of work and a penny of salary or not, and that is going to lead to a big buildup in cash in savings accounts. We already saw in January the savings rate jumped to 20% again. We've got literally over $1.5 trillion parked away since last March, and that's going to come out at some point. And we're going to get first probably some pressure on asset prices as people park that in higher yielding entities, and then ultimately consumer price inflation. So there is a price to pay by doing too much, and I think we're on track to do that.
Well, to that point, I mean, do we have the supply capacity to provide the goods and services to soak up the money once it's available?
No. So the CBO's way of doing this, if we take a time out for just a little bit of nerd talk, is they have an estimate of the potential GDP for the economy. What could we produce in income and output if everyone was fully employed? We're about $450 billion below that right now. Well, 1.9 trillion on top of the nearly $1 trillion in December is going to close that gap. There's no doubt about it. And then there's going to be a lot left over, and that's where you get pressure on prices and wages and produce some inflation.
Yeah, I didn't run the Congressional Budget Office, but even I can figure that 1.9 trillion is bigger than the 150 billion.
Yes, you did that well.
Thank you so much, Doug. It's really always great to have you with us. That's Douglas Holtz-Eakin of the American Action Forum. Coming up, getting our arms around just how bad the pandemic has been from Justin Fox.